too easy, that's why. I just so yeah, yeah, that's good as well, yeah.
I'm definitely not qualified to talk about Ewasm. I'm like curious if people like me. Like this guy's talking about Ewasm.
You know, scare people off.
It definitely seems possible.
Could you guys announce the Wi-Fi password for the room? Because no one
Yeah, I'll just wait for you.
Oh, no, not for me, but just Evan, if you shout it out. So this is your first announcement.
Who wants the Wi-Fi password? Yeah, it's way more popular than my talk. All right, 3TH. ETHCC. So it is 3TH, capital C, exclamation point, 2018. Is it up there? So again, that is 3TH, capital C, exclamation point, 2018. I see some puzzled looks out there. Is it my Texas accent?
So it's FTC in lead speak.
If it didn't work, raise your hand. I'll keep repeating it until it does. I could just spend 30 minutes saying the Wi-Fi password, really. Yeah. We're almost there. You ready? Ready for me? Yeah? Okay. So who here is excited to hear me talk about Ewasm? Yeah? Yeah. Okay. I got a couple laughs. That's definitely a joke. I'm not at all qualified to talk about that. That was more laughs than the joke probably deserved, especially for 9 o'clock in the morning. So thank you. I appreciate that. Hmm? Oh, yeah. Okay, so this is me. I do Week in Ethereum. It's a weekly newsletter. I'm a member of Consensus. For that, I was the director of finance and risk at an online ticketing startup, and I have been an investor, trader, consultant, all those things in the past. Passed all the levels of the CFA and the CAI exams. I also sometimes admit to having an MBA, which, you know, unfortunately happened. That's my brief bio. So we're gonna, all right, I can figure this out. We're gonna talk about token models. So I just wanted to start with history. So you might remember all of this, and it might be old for you, but if not, it hopefully is interesting. We started with Bitcoin as a currency, and that was the token, right? It was just a currency. 2011 was the beginning of the alts, and really, like in the beginning, like they didn't really do very much. I guess Litecoin was a little bit resistant to ASICs, and then there were a few more, and then there was Aurora Coin somewhere around the 2013, 2014 time, which was like an airdrop to Iceland to be their currency. Anyway, 2013 was the Mastercoin ICO, the first ICO, which has given us the nomenclature, which we are unfortunately still stuck with. Late 2013, people started doing interesting things, or promising interesting things, like NXT and BitShares were out there promising the world, and they never did deliver the world. The people involved in those projects now have different projects now, and they are again promising the world. So, in late 2013, Vitalik started talking about Ethereum, and then the sale was in July of 2014. And the basic model was, we keep 20% to ourselves and we sell the rest. And originally it was even like 30% was going to be kept for the foundation and founders, and there was pushback on that, so it went down to 20%. And that was basically, sort of the same model that when we had the first round of token sales on Ethereum in Q3 and Q4 2015 of Augur and Digix and Maker. It was like the same basic model. We will, sell most of it and then keep, 20% or so for a nonprofit foundation, or the idea of evolving it into a DAO. Moving in, there really wasn't much for a solid 6 months there, and then we moved in, and there was to Q3 and Q4 of 2016, and there was Singular, and there was Economy, and there was Golem, and there was First Blood, and the model evolved a bit, and there started to be a big incentive for getting in right away. Like First Blood had a power hour, and they sold out in like 10 minutes or something, as memory serves. And that started seeming like maybe not the best model. The Ether sale had at least like a week, I believe, where you could get the maximum price, and then the sale started declining. The price started declining increasing linearly, I suppose. All right, I screwed this up multiple times already. Then it started to get into, these sales that were selling out right away. We had Melon that sold out quite quickly, and then we got into Q2, and BAT sold out in 36 million in a couple of blocks. AdChain actually sold out in one block. That was, I believe, the first sale that sold out in a block. Gnosis they experimented a little bit and did a reverse Dutch auction, which is really just a Dutch auction, and they had a crazy valuation because, it was a crazy time period. The Dutch auction, I think, was a little bit more successful than they expected, and left them with, I think, like 90% of their tokens. I forget the exact number, but really the opposite of we're distributing 80% of our tokens right off the bat. Anyway, the model evolved some into late Q2. Bancor raised crazy amounts. Status clogged the chain for an entire day, if not more, and raised 100-some million. And they were trying to get away from this everything up front, but instead it ended up the way Status did it, it clogged more for longer periods of time. So I know this is a history lesson early in the morning, so I'm sorry. I probably should have thought through that a little bit better. I'll try to speed up. Anyway, in Q3 of last year, you know, the volume goes crazy. As somebody that does a weekly newsletter, I started, you know, I was keeping a list of sales every week, right? And all of a sudden there was, you know, it went from having a couple of sales upcoming on the list to, you know, I could have listed hundreds. And I think 0x like deserves credit for doing the right thing. They could have sold a lot, and instead they sold like 15 million, and they did some compliance, and they were, you know, sort of set an example in what was about to come, which was because of the status clogging the network for a day, everybody started doing these deep discounts, and insider sales is really what they ended up being. And unfortunately, like, you know, there was a tweet, you can look it up online, I'm not gonna tell you who it is, but of somebody who said, like, you know, this isn't why I got into the space, all of these insider deals, like, you know, you're getting 50% off when you're a week before the public. And that was, you know, a real shame. Like, there is some benefit to, like, making sure that people can get into your sale, especially, like, the larger guys that you might want in. But, you know, this is ultimately, unfortunately, why regulators often start to get involved, is when you have deals like that, you know, that's just wrong, right? When, like, the regular public is paying double a week later what other people were paying. So we started seeing more, the bigger, more reputable sales focus more on compliance, although some of them were like compliance in name only. Like there was a sale that, you know, wanted to give itself like 10% or double-digit % of the sale, like right into their own pocket. There was still a big sale that, you know, they sold at like a multiple a week later, the public, than what their friends paid like a week before. Anyway, it's definitely evolving so that we have basically recreated the existing finance system where, like, the good deals are going to VCs. So what does this mean? I mean, it means the predominant model today is you raise a round from quote-unquote accredited investors in the US or VCs, angels. Then you get your project live so that the token has utility, and then you do your sale. And then you probably excluded Americans from your sale, even so. And, you know, like I said, we've really just recreated startup financing, which is definitely, I don't know, not really why I got in the space. I don't know about you. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what's coming, since it's the state of token models, and now we can get out of the history. Hopefully that was, nobody's asleep so far. Security tokens are definitely happening. I would say that anybody that is doing a security token at the start, there's definitely an adverse selection problem, right? Which is that, like, if you have a private equity fund and you can go out and raise from traditional investors like pension funds, or you can, like, have, you know, public, like, which is unclear regulatory, like, you would definitely do the traditional, like, go out and raise from traditional LPs. So I'm pretty skeptical of things where, like, there's really no reason for it to be on a blockchain, like, at least at the start, because it tends to be the people that couldn't actually raise money otherwise. So I think it's, like, interesting to look for things that are uniquely enabled. So I think one thing that makes obvious sense there is real estate, tokenizing, you know, big buildings, you know, that are in the deca millions and hundreds of millions. That can allow a new access through liquidity on the blockchain to more people. That makes sense a lot. There's a couple projects that are doing that, and that's actually, to me, where security tokens actually, like, make a lot of sense. And I'm also going to suggest that, as I've talked to people out in the community, sales or projects that are getting close to doing a sale, they, like, they're thinking about it, and they raise money from VCs and accredited investors, and then sort of what I'm starting to see a lot of, and people are thinking about it, and some haven't, and nobody's really announced it, but people are getting to that point, is you bootstrap your community through a bounty, a rewards token, or maybe you airdrop it to existing ETH holders or something like that. And the benefits are obvious. You get wider distribution. You get your token into the hands of actual people that care about your project, rather than people that are trying to flip it for 2x in a matter of weeks. Like, as a project founder, that's probably not a goal of yours, right? So, and Variable, a project at home here, I think has really led in this area. They published something on August 2017, and that basically laid it out. And it's funny because at the time I totally didn't really think it was a big deal, and I think we have seen, like in the last 6 months, that people are definitely evolving towards this. And all right, well, that worked. Didn't work on my computer. Variable, I guess I wanted to talk a little bit about how they do it, right? Which is they are a leveraged derivative platform, and so they, in August, they announced their alpha, and then their alpha ran, and they had trading competitions, and you can earn your tokens by using their alpha, which is on Coven, I believe, and it's pretty neat. Like it's good design, but I think we'll increasingly see people that like make you use the product in order to, or the project and the product in order to, those are the people that you actually want to have your token and hold your token, and then you can incentivize them through giving it away for referring your friends, as Variable does as well, or even coding. You could bounties and bug bounties and all that sorts of good things. And then this is the other example that came to mind. I co-founded it, which I am an advisor to, full disclosure. And actually, Variable is a consensus project, so I am also, I guess, interested in both. Although I didn't think about that when I was doing this talk. It just worked out that way. The co-founded has sort of come to the same conclusion as well. I think this post was from a month ago, and they are starting a fund which will invest in the equity of blockchain projects, and then they will airdrop the tokens once the project is live, and sort of get distribution through their community that way. And so, I mean, Variable's not the only person that's thinking about it. Co-founded it as well, and independently. And I find it somewhat noteworthy that they are both European, because I feel like it would have, intuitively, I would have assumed that it would have been the Americans that were worried about the SEC that did this, but not the case. So I guess talk through a little bit more some of the advantages of this model, which is like the white paper for the sale that doesn't describe my project. And we certainly saw that in some of the early projects, that they had a white paper, and that's not how the product works at all right now, right? Like the specification, I mean, Ethereum has changed a lot, the tooling has changed a lot, it's nascent technology. What they thought would be possible actually wasn't possible, and especially with the cost of transactions now. So a lot of things need to be re-architected, and that's fine. All of those people are good people, like certainly did it with the best of intentions. And it's fine when it was 2 years ago or a year ago and it was our own little niche, but as these things start becoming mainstream, like that's clearly a problem. You can't just be putting a white paper out there that doesn't describe what you actually deliver, right? Whereas with this, like you'll basically, you'll only have the accredited investors who are supposedly savvy risk takers, well, which I don't know about that, but Anyway, it also solves the problem of massive amounts of appreciated ETH in the hands of early founders, which is certainly a blessing and a curse. It's great that these are well funded. At the same time, like it's tough to stay nimble, when you're pre-product market fit because there's no constraints on you, financial constraints. So it's easy to hire people, and when you hire people and have more people on your payroll, more people, more resources sometimes means you move slower and not faster. And of course, it should hopefully keep governments happy too, right? I think, you're giving your tokens away to the people that care about your project and are involved in it. Doesn't look like a security in May. I mean, I don't think you can even really make an argument for that. And though, thankfully, I am not a lawyer. I dropped out of law school. Best decision I ever made. And of course, you don't have any sale mechanic issues, which is some of the things I talked about earlier, where there was all these debates about how do we have these sale mechanics without clogging up the network. And it turns out that, like, hey, if you don't have a sale, you don't have those issues. So that's it. I think I sort of sped through my talk. Yeah, it was a lot faster than I did it when I practiced. I guess that's what happens when you're nervous. So I don't know, anybody, any questions, comments, arguments, debates, comments about anything else, questions? If not, we can go get coffee. Yeah.
What's your opinion? Oh, thank you. So I was wondering, now that we had so many ICOs in the past time, which were probably not so perfect, like say, regulators will see that was a lot of inside trading. What's your opinion how it will backfire in the future now that we have now done probably the wrong path in the last few months?
Yeah, I have a lot of things to say about that. I mean, I'm an American, so I think about what the U.S. government does. I think the various sprawling agencies of the federal bureaucracy, I mean, they all think they're entitled to regulate this, and it's really unclear. Like, I think there was something a judge just said that the CFTC could regulate these crypto as commodities, right? Well, it can't really be a commodity and a security, and I think even like by law, that's pretty much established. So, like, is it a commodity, or is it a security, or is it money? It's very unclear, and I think that is going to complicate some of their efforts to, to do things. When they do eventually do things, of course, Americans, the SEC has subpoenaed a bunch of people in the last. Well, it went public this week, but I guess they did it over the past few months. I mean, we've seen some, like, outside of the outright scams, we've seen some, like I said, compliance in name only that I consider, bad behavior, that frankly, like, most of it was in the Bay Area. So I don't know what we'll see there. I would expect that they will continue trying to sort of, like, issue statements that pump the brakes, maybe go after somebody to make an example out of them because they have limited resources and they have to choose their targets carefully. And then look for pressure points, which is sort of what they've indicated, which is like exchanges and the lawyers that are doing these sales. Unfortunately, like I think anybody trying to comment on what regulators would do is like, there's a million regulators, so that's about as best as you can do. And that's really only an American perspective. I don't even know what a European perspective would look like. Yeah.
That's really interesting to hear. I'm from Switzerland, and about 3 weeks ago, I don't know, maybe some of you have heard, our financial authority has released some information about how they see tokens, and they divide it into 3 different pillars. So there's a security asset and utility token, and also what for those different pillars has to be produced in terms of booklets, term sheets, and so forth. And still, it gives a lot of room of interpretation. I don't know. Have you seen some developments that go in the same direction?
I mean, I read the same release, and I thought it was good. I mean, it was certainly like a good attempt with good faith to attempt to define things. I think like the devil is in the details in those things, though, right? Like you can say that there's utility tokens, you can say that there's security tokens, but you know, how do you define that, and how they end up regulating it in practice is, you know, completely different than what they say right now. So, you know, because there was relatively light on details. Yeah, I mean, in the U.S., like they've ended up almost like going after the manner of sale more than they have the actual, at least so far, right? They've gone after the people that were basically promising returns, which is really more about how you advertise and marketed it rather than what your token actually was. So, yeah, I don't know. I would say in general, though, like, you know, Vitalik tweeted out recently. I think it was a reply to people, so maybe not everybody saw it, but that it was surprising to him that, you know, as somebody who grew up libertarian, it was surprising to him that regulators treated him better than most of the actual like cypherpunks did, which I laughed at when I saw. But like I think in general, like regulators have been quite reasonable on this stuff so far. Of course, we'll see. Yeah.
Just quickly wanted to ask, have you seen and do you believe there's room for non-fungible token sales?
Well, I'm not a lawyer. I would, I mean, I don't see how you really make the case that they're securities, but I mean, you know, I think that ultimately comes down to whether some regulator somewhere decides to go after somebody that does it. I think, you know, there's probably some room in that for things to look like a security, even in a non-fungible token. Like, if you start promising investment returns and, you know, things like that, or, you know, some of these things also that have come out, like, frankly, look a lot like Ponzi schemes, just the way that they're architected, some of the, like, CryptoKitties clones. But in general, I don't see how you could really make an argument that, like, a digital collectible is a security. But, I mean, I'm not a lawyer and I'm not a regulator, so who knows? We'll see.
Hi. So sometimes a company releases its tokens directly to the market with no procedural token sale. Do you think there are some kind of problems with that?
What do you mean by introduced directly to the market?
I know, like speculations and stuff. When a company directly releases its tokens to the market, like to an exchange or something, without a procedural ICO.
Do you have an example, like an airdrop?
Well, yes, like not like an airdrop, but it makes a constant price on an exchange. Yes.
I think I can add an example for his question. Like recently, many crypto exchanges based in China, they're actually releasing their exchange tokens directly via the exchange. So I think that might be an example to your question.
Like a Binance, you mean? But they did a sale, right? So.
Well, they did sell, but directly, not like you give them your wallet address or something.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know. I didn't follow the Binance
okay.
thing.
Thank you.
Seriously, so yeah, no opinion. Sorry. Anybody else? Or should I go drink coffee? All right. Thanks for coming. Thanks for